You ever feel stuck, like you're playing by a rule book someone else wrote for you? Well, what if I told you there's an ancient guide from over 2,000 years ago written by a philosopher named Zhuangzi that's all about how to break free? And here's the twist. It's not about changing the world around you. It's about totally rewiring your mind. So let's dive into his masterclass on finding ultimate freedom.
Okay, so the core of this whole thing is a concept called Xiaoyao You. It translates to free and easy wandering. But listen, this is not about just, taking a stroll in the park. It's way deeper. Think of it more like a state of being. It's the art of moving through your entire life completely untethered, breaking out of that little cage of your own ego so you can finally see the big universal picture.
And what's so fascinating here is that this isn't just some dusty, abstract philosophy. No way. It's much better to think of it as a strategic manual for your mind. Zhuangzi isn't just spouting big ideas. He's handing us a toolkit, a set of mental moves specifically designed to help us take apart our normal, limited ways of thinking, piece by piece.
And the way he does it, he serves us up this incredible philosophical three-course meal. Seriously. First up, we've got the appetizer, a myth so huge it just shatters our normal sense of scale. Then comes the main course, some pretty intense dialogues that go right after our core beliefs about success and power. And for dessert, we get this awesome mind-bending paradox that, get this, reveals the real secret to freedom.
All right, let's start our meal with the appetizer. To get our minds ready for his really radical ideas, Zhuangzi does something brilliant. He doesn't start with logic or a boring argument. Nope, he just throws us headfirst into this wild, fantastic story. Something so unbelievably massive that it just forces us to think on a scale we're not used to.
So just try to get your head around this. In the northern darkness, there's a fish named Khan, and it's thousands of miles long. It's so big, you can't even really comprehend it. And then this massive fish transforms into a bird, the peng. Its back is like a great mountain. And its wings are like clouds that just cover the sky.
But this bird, the peng, it can't just flap its wings and go. It has to climb 90,000 miles straight up. Now, why would it do that? Because its wings are so gigantic that it needs a deep, powerful foundation of wind underneath it just to lift off. And right there, that's Zhuangzi's first big lesson for us. Great journeys need an equally great foundation. You can't do something huge with some serious, deep preparation.
And this is where Zhuangzi makes his first killer point. Down on the ground, you've got a little cicada and a dove. They look up, they see the peng climbing, and they just laugh at it. They're like, "What's this guy doing? We just fly from this tree to that tree. Sometimes we don't even make it. Why on earth would you need to go 90,000 miles into the sky?" See? Their worldview is just too small. They literally can't imagine the peng's reality. And that's his whole idea of small knowledge versus great knowledge. Okay, so our minds have been stretched wide open by the sheer scale of the peng. We're ready for the main course. And this is where Zhuangzi pivots. He moves from this huge myth to a series of really sharp, smart debates. And they're all aimed at one thing: attacking our obsession with worldly power and fame.
And he kicks it off with a question that seems simple, but it's actually really profound. I mean, think about it. So much of our world is built on this idea that being the one in charge, the CEO, the president, the ruler, is the ultimate prize, right? But Zhuangzi steps back and asks, is it though? Is it really a worthy goal? And to make his point, he tells this great story. You have the legendary Emperor Yao, who has all the power in the world, and he tries to just give his entire empire away to this wise sage, Xiaoyao You. But Xiaoyao You turns him down flat. He basically says, look, the world is already in order. Why should I take your place? A little bird in the forest, a titmouse, it only needs one single branch to be happy. He's saying, I already have everything I need. Why would I want the burden of running everything?
And this story just perfectly captures the futility of being a ruler from Zhuangzi's point of view. For someone who's achieved that great knowledge, right? Someone with the perspective of the peng bird, well, power isn't a prize, it's a cage. It just traps you. He's asking, why would you want to be the host of the party, responsible for everything and everyone, when you could just be a carefree guest in the universe, just taking what you need, like that little bird on its one branch?
And that brings us to dessert.
After stretching our minds and challenging our values, Zhuangzi serves up his final and maybe his most famous idea. It's this awesome, counterintuitive paradox that really ties his whole philosophy of freedom together. This is the big one.
So the story starts with Zhuangzi's friend Huizi, who's a very practical, logical kind of guy. He comes to Zhuangzi, and he's complaining. He says, hey, I got these seeds for a giant gourd, and man, did it grow. It was enormous, but it was completely useless. I mean, it was too big to be a water container, way too clumsy to be a ladle. It was good for nothing. So I smashed it.
Now, Huizi's problem is something we can all get, right? We're always judging things by their function, by how useful they are. If something doesn't have a clear, practical purpose, we tend to just write it off. So I'll ask you, what good is something that has no conventional use?
And Zhuangzi's reaction? He just laughs. He tells his friend, wow, you are really bad at using big things. He's basically saying the problem wasn't the gourd. The problem was Huizi's rigid, small-minded thinking. He was completely stuck on what he thought a gourd was supposed to be used for.
So Zhuangzi asked him, why didn't you think of it differently? Why not lash it to your body like a giant raft and go floating freely on the rivers and lakes? And boom, there it is, the brilliant twist. See, conventional usefulness is super limited. A ladle is just a ladle, but by being useless for any one specific thing, the gourd suddenly has unlimited potential. It becomes a vehicle for freedom. Its uselessness is what makes it so powerful. And what protects it? No one's going to try and steal or control a useless gourd. And that, my friends, is the great uselessness.
So let's tie this all together. What does this whole philosophical meal add up to? Well, we've seen that Xiaoyao You, this free and easy wandering, it's not just a bunch of weird old stories. It's a highly structured, strategic guide for unlocking some pretty profound mental and spiritual freedom.
It really is a clear three-step path. First, the myth of the peng just shatters your limited perspective. It forces you to think bigger. Second, the debates with the sages help you devalue all those worldly goals that keep us trapped. And finally, the paradox of the gourd frees you from the tyranny of purpose, showing you that real freedom is found in potential, not in some predefined function.
And this really gets to the heart of Zhuangzi's genius. It's his method. He doesn't just hit you with dry, boring logic. He uses these incredibly powerful metaphors and stories you'll never forget. And they're designed to do something really sneaky. They bypass our rational, logical defenses and start to change how we think from the inside out.
And this leads us to a really powerful insight about how his work works. His philosophy isn't static. It's not just words on a page. It's alive. The power of deconstructive philosophy comes from this. Metaphor derives logic, and story creates a movement. Think about that. The story of the pang doesn't just illustrate an idea, it creates the logic of great knowledge in our minds. The story of the gourd creates a movement towards freedom. That's the real magic here.
So, in the end, this isn't just about ancient history. It's a challenge thrown right at us, right now. Take a look at your own life. What's your giant gourd? What's that passion, that interest, that weird part of you that seems completely useless by normal standards? Because maybe, just maybe, like Zhuangzi's gourd, that very thing you've dismissed, its supposed uselessness, if actually its greatest strength. Maybe it's the key to a kind of freedom you haven't even dared to imagine yet.